This, ladies and gentlemen, is why you or we cannot afford nice homes anymore. If you or someone you know is looking to buy a home at the moment, or maybe you're dreaming of buying one in the future, you need to understand this about the housing market now. You are no longer competing against Mr. Jones down the road, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. That is the old world that no longer exists. The people you're up against now are actually not people at all. They are faceless entities. And despite this government pledge of 1.5 million new homes, I did a lot of investigating today, and I want to show you why this is just not true. This will actually shock you, like a lot of my investigations will shock you today when you actually find out the truth of what's happening with the housing market. And this isn't just in the UK. It doesn't matter where you're watching from. It will be very similar in your country, and the USA is far, far worse. It's probably twice as bad as the UK for this. So over the last 2 decades then, Britain's housing market has been very quietly transformed, not for the benefit of you and families, but for the benefit of institutions and profit. So according to the government's own statistics that I went through their website today, and in fact, just for reference, I know some of you say, Neil, where is my reference? Give me the reference. Here is a couple of reports if you want to read them. The House of Commons Library Developer Contributions. We have housing statistics from Homes England. These are all government reports. Now, you've probably seen all of this. This is a few months ago here. Most of UK's big build-to-rent developers owned by private foreign equity firms. What about this report here? This is the PRS REIT PLC. We'll come back to that. Japan's Nomura real estate strikes deal with LNG to enter the housing market. Would 1.5 million landlords selling up and leaving the rental market really be a bad thing? See, there's all this stuff going on. And then you'll also see the correlation, which we'll cover, of rent growth. And this is what I looked at was London. And you'll see a very strange correlation when we come back to this, and this is building. So a couple of reference points for you, because people, they leave these comments, oh, he's not giving a source, so I'm unsubscribing, I'm clicking off. Okay, good, do that, please, because I can't always give every last detail when sometimes I've read for 5 or 10 hours all these different documents. So here we go. Let's get into this. According to the government's own statistics, only 60% of people now own their own home. This may not surprise you, but if you exclude the people that owe money to the bank, i.e. a mortgage, meaning you don't actually own your home until you've paid off every last penny, because if you were to breach your terms and conditions, the bank could in theory repossess your home. That's why you hear of repossessions. This number is just 30%. So actually, only 30% of people own their own homes. The other 70% is not owned by the homeowner of that. So the other 70% is not owned by that homeowner. So a couple of things we just need to get down first. So I want to just show you this graph then that shows build to rent. Okay, build to rent. So remember this term, and here it is. This is BTR. This is how big it is sort of increased since 2017 then. This is when they started to allow in, I might be in the way a little bit here, let me move up to there you go. This is when they started to allow in foreign not necessarily developers, but investors. And these investors are hedge funds, it is your BlackRock, Blackstone, and all the others, and now this is where it got to as of the last report in 2024. This is absolutely staggering. The numbers here truly is. So this is now 90,000 units. So we're not even renting from people anymore. You got to remember this. A lot of this money that you were paying in rent stayed into the local economy. It was paid to that landlord. That landlord lived locally in the area, and then they spent that money in the economy. Well, now think some of these investment funds and firms, they're global. So you're not even having your money being kept locally. It's going outside. It's leaving the country. And we know how that goes. So that's one thing. The 1.5 million new homes is not true. And the reason why is because if you look at most of those homes, they are not being built for you to purchase. In fact, you can't purchase most of the homes that are built today. Have you ever wondered, you've seen these huge developments? I remember I was with a friend and he said, have you seen all these huge developments? This is when I was visiting him. And I said, oh yeah. And I said, are they open to the public? Because I kind of knew already. He said, no, that's what I was really surprised by. We're looking for a new home, because they've had another kid. And they wanted an extra bedroom. And they were looking around and they said, that would be perfect. It's the perfect location. Everything there is perfect. They couldn't buy a single home. Not one out of the 1,000 homes that were being built. Not one. They could only rent them because an entity had built them to rent. So again, remember this key. 79% of rentals are now owned by institutions such as banks, trusts, or private equity and investment giants. BlackRock then is the big one. They're not just investing, they've actively been invited by the UK government to oversee a lot of this. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, I wish I was making it up. It would make for a fascinating bedtime story. But this is completely true. They're helping the government with policy, with the policy for this. That is like giving an alcoholic the keys to a liquor store and saying, hey, we'll just let you decide how much you should drink, right? They're giving them the access to the policy, to write the policy. So they control almost $10 trillion, by the way, and they want to put a lot of it into UK housing. So they actually own entire housing schemes, especially in this sector, entire schemes. And they're not just in housing, they dominate pensions, mortgage-backed securities, government debt markets. They influence property from every angle here. And it's central as well to Labour's housing plan. Again, in those documents I referenced, BlackRock is in there. They say that they are a partner, a strategic partner, if we want to use the correct word, for these 1.5 million homes being delivered. Of course, they get to choose a lot of them for their own portfolio. They also fund developments like blocks or flats, all of these units to be turned into permanent rentals. And their aim is the stated aim is to lower rents. This is what they say with the government policy, because you know the government, they're highly socialist. They love all this stuff. They want to flood the market with more units because supply and demand curve dictates it will drive down the rent. But that's not true. In fact, there was this really good piece of journalism here, and they correlated it, and you can see here, even stranger. And this was related to this one. That's odd. All of these areas that they've controlled, these entities controlled, the rents have been exploding up in price. So this is another reason people say, I don't understand it. Why are rents going up so high? Doesn't make sense. It's because you're not being told the full picture. By the way, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you like these sort of videos here. So there's not just those, though. What about Blackstone, a subsidiary, as it were? But not just a subsidiary, they also own something called Sage Homes. In fact, let me clarify that. I don't know if they own them, but through Sage Homes, they've bought £3.7 billion worth of British housing recently. 22,000 homes. They are not even the largest landlord, by the way, in the UK, but they're one of the largest. They've now acquired 22,000 homes. But one of the things was they sort of offloaded 3,000 homes last year, and it was to sort of make it more equitable in the market. Well, guess who they offloaded these 3,000 homes to? Did they put them on the open market so families could finally drive down the price of houses in those areas, and then they could buy a house? No. they sold them to universities' superannuation scheme, which is, I know, the largest pension fund. So again, it was sold to a pension fund. So they didn't do what they were supposed to do. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's all lies, ladies and gents, all of this stuff. So what does it tell you? Well, it tells me homes are no longer about people living in them. This is now about profit, about these multinational corporations who have friends in high places in the government, as it were. This is what we are now seeing. Now, I'm going to run through all the different companies and banks that have bought homes now, and the list is huge. So let me go through this. But just quickly, I get disgusted by this sort of thing, and I'd like to know in the comments below if you feel the same. It's just not right. It's not fair on the young people. I was very, very fortunate that when I was growing up, I bought my first home at, I think I was about 19. I'd saved up from the army. I'd been in the army 2 years. I'd saved up, I think it was £10,000, and then that was just enough to buy this absolute dump. It was derelict, basically. This tiny little home I bought, completely derelict. And that's the only reason. And then I would slowly, it took me 1.5 years to sort of renovate it while I'm in the army, getting contractors and everything else. I was very, very fortunate to get on the housing ladder early, but those sort of homes don't even exist anymore. You can't even get them. So I really feel for the young people. But when it comes to, investing in things like this, even a lot of the landlords are exiting the market. If you want to sort of be honorable, you want to invest honorably and I'm not saying being a landlord isn't. I actually think it is. It's very honorable to offer housing to people, but not these big faceless entities where the money is leaving the economy. At least with a normal landlord, it stays in the economy. They offer a good service, good landlords, and they actually help to give a roof over people's head. I genuinely believe that. But the other thing I was going to mention was, as always on every video, I try and put a quick promo in for any course. Today, I just wanted to let you know about my stock market investment program. It is an absolute masterclass in the stock market. It's one of my largest programs, and it goes through from beginners all the way through to expert level. In fact, I did a large piece on how Warren Buffett actually invests, his value investing system. It's a bit complex, a lot of formulas, but there's even simple things like stock screeners. So I teach you how to find undervalued stocks that pay a dividend and will pay you long into the future. Very, very safe. I teach you all the terminology, all the different things. It's an absolutely huge course, dividend investing as well. Highly recommend this program. And as always, whenever I promote one program, I always give you a discount code below, which is very high, 90% usually. So check that in the description below. Let me tell you now about these big entities buying homes. So Lloyds Bank of the UK, this is as of 2025. I just got the stats here. They began in 23 with owning just 1,000 homes. They then got so excited by the profits they were making that they got up to 3,500 homes within a year after that. Now it's over 5,000 homes, and they've got a target by the end of this year of 10,000. They're buying 5,000 homes in the next few months. And by the end of 2030, they want to own 50,000 homes. This is just one bank, okay? And now, one thing I think is shocking is that people are saying, well, this is a conflict of interest. How can they offer mortgages when they're buying up the same homes that they're offering mortgages on? They're out competing. It's not right. It's unethical. But of course, who's gonna stop them? I don't know. Nomura and Legal in General, this was as of March 2025. They have taken on 1,000 rental homes in London. They specifically targeted London. And all of a sudden, the rents are increasing. All of these companies are targeting London, and London rents are increasing. The other one is PRS, REIT, which is a REIT. So PRS is Private Rented Sector, and it's the Real Estate Investment Trust. They have just bought over 5,400 family homes in the UK. They've just been going around just buying them all up. They've even purchased a corporate rental portfolio, and they outcompeted all the families who were in line to buy these. They actually approached the developer and said, we don't want you selling to any of these families. Any deals you've done, close the deals. We're going to buy the whole lot. And of course, the developer did that. It's terrible. And you think these homes that they just bought, these are the exact homes that 20 years ago, 10 years ago, would have been perfect for first-time buyers. First-time buyers, perfect homes. Well, not anymore. They are all going now to these big entities. A couple of other things I've noticed, which is government-based. They've deliberately created schemes to expand the institution-owned housing deliberately, and I hope they don't start doing all these subsidies as well now, because they're talking about these developer subsidies. This would be even more shocking, because then they could offset their taxes with these subsidies. So while everyone else is paying taxes, these owners may not have to pay any taxes. Or they could say, well, look, our headquarters are in wherever, some tiny island in the middle of nowhere, and they could say, look, we're headquartered here, so we don't even have to pay all these taxes that everybody else has to pay. People keep saying, oh, landlords are greedy. That landlord down the street is greedy, horrible person. Actually, who would you rather have owning the home that you rent, the landlord down the street who you know, or these massive entities where they don't even, some of them, how long they take to do repairs, and they really don't care, a lot of them. Canada Pension Plan, they have also just bought £1 billion worth. Grey Kite and Gatehouse, £750 million plan into the rental market. Aviva Investors, £600 million. Single family rental sector overall, £1.5 billion. This goes on and on, ladies and gentlemen. I could just keep going on and on with all of this. The list is huge. And so how does this affect you, though? This is the big question. Well, if they are buying up all the 3-bedroom, the 2-bedroom, the 1-bed starter homes, how on earth are you going to get on the housing market? How are your kids going to get on the market? Your grandkids? How are they going to get on the housing market? I don't know what the solution is at this rate. You're competing with other families, and it's pushing the prices up. You think the average first-time buyer home last year, £311,000. That means a deposit of £61,000 is what you would need. That would take 16 years approximately to save up that sort of money. And by 2035, with these prices, you're going to need £93,000 at that point. This is why they say a lifetime of renters. You will own nothing and be happy. This is what they're moving towards. This is where this is all going. They want to own everything. They want to own everything, and that's what it's it's meant when they say you will own nothing and be happy. It's not that no one will own anything. It's that these big institutions are slowly taking control of everything, and the people are getting poorer. They're getting less money. Their savings are getting wiped out. They're taking on more debt, and eventually people will just own nothing. They're going to rent everything from these big institutions, and that's another problem right there, because that is what creates this form of debt slavery, this vicious cycle where you've got to work harder and longer all the time, and the people have no rights because they've got to pay their debts and they've got to earn money for food and everything else. This is a vicious cycle, my friends. We've seen it in history a lot of times economically. It never ends well at all. Thank you again for being a subscriber here. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Really appreciate you. Take care. God bless you. God bless your families. Check out the stock market course. It will help you immensely. And apart from that, I'll see you on the next one.